walk down and flush them out.
Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, a journey into the depths of men's hearts where courage meets vulnerability and wisdom embraces integrity. In a world that often measures a man by his outer achievements, this podcast dares to explore what truly defines a man of character. We unpack the challenges and triumphs that shape men's lives, bringing to light stories of resilience, compassion, and unshakable faith. We believe that the heart of a man is a treasure trove of untold stories, powerful lessons, and profound wisdom. Through authentic dialogues and insightful discussions, we aim to unlock these treasures, one story at a time. So, whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and transformed. And now, to guide you through this journey of discovery, please welcome your host, a visionary leader and a true catalyst for change, Dwayne Dwyer, but we affectionately know him as the Mindset Coach.
Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast. We're your hosts for this evening's conversation. My name is Dwayne Dwyer, I go by the Mindset Coach, and I'm joined by my brothers up top of me. We have the Uncle Junior, Mr. Garfield Martin, also known as a consistency coach. And below us, we have the son of Timothy, Mr. Tawami Gaddy, also known as the Available Man. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Friday evening?
It is Friday evening, so you know I'm good. Good. You know, still shout outs to my big bro out there on the road. Pray all is well, but we still get to chop it up and I get to learn something from these great gentlemen.
I'm doing well. School about to start up. Football season about to start up. Stop being super hot as much. So, you know, I'm well, but I like the heat though. You know, I don't like being in it, but I prefer the heat over the cold. So yeah, but all is well. How about you? What's going on in Coach Land?
Hey man, all is well, man. All is well. I'm with you. I like the heat as well. I just don't like being in it. As long as the AC is working, I'm fine. That's all I got to say.
Absolutely.
But as always, we look forward to these Friday nights. I specifically look forward to these Friday nights. Again, I get to share in conversation with you gentlemen. And again, shout out to Ro. Be careful out there, bro. Again, you know, as always, your presence on the platform is missed. But as I was saying, it's not just that we get to share in conversation with each other, but we also get to share in conversation with the livest chat on social media. Because again, like I said, we look forward and we appreciate you guys being here because you are a functional part of these discussions. So that being said, Crystal Everett, good evening. I just call her Crystal Evening. I was about to say Good Everett. It happens, man. It happens. Crystal Everett, good evening and welcome to the night show. Nick D, good to see you. Welcome. Let's see who else we got down here in the chat. His Divine Appointment, good to see you and welcome to this evening's show. Miss Charlotte Jordan, good, as always, good to see you and welcome to this evening's conversation. Miss Lisa Keys, good to see you. Welcome. Miss Adrian Artist, good to see you and welcome. Don't want to leave anybody else out there. Renewed consideration, as always, good to see you. Miss Nodella Sacagawea Jordan, good to see you and welcome. Absolutely. Football season is right around the corner, and I am counting down the kickoff because I'm looking forward to see what these Georgia Bulldogs are going to do. That being said, listen, want to kind of hit off with these admin notes real quick. Again, we are about a little over a week and a day, to be honest with you. a week and a day out from the conference on the 16th of August. Listen, if you have registered or you haven't registered, I want you guys to send us an email. All right, send us an email to this email address right here, to let us know that you have registered, because I don't want to miss anybody. So again, if you have registered or haven't registered yet, go ahead and send us an email because you intend to register, and because the goal is it's going to be a closed session. It's not going to be open. It's not going to be open social media. So that way that we can make sure that we get you guys into the actual conference itself. It is free. So again, sign up. Look in the show notes. Also, that way you can get more information about the conference. Also, I want to add, there is the August blog is out. Check the show notes. You will see the link to access the August blog. And again, shout out to His Divine Appointment, because she does such a wonderful job on the blog. Last but not least, tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m., we have our quarterly community meeting. So you should have received a email, a calendar invite. If you did not, send an email to that email address again, right? Say that I did not get an invitation in my calendar. That way we can all attend the meeting and we can talk about what the future of this community looks like. Gentlemen, did I miss anything? Any admin notes, whatever? Nope, good to go.
I think you got them all. I think you got it.
All right, I just want to make sure. I try. Okay, if Chris, if you can think of anything, please put it in the chat, and I'll make sure that we bring it up. Verley McCoy, good to see you, and welcome to this evening's conversation. So that being said, it is about time to get this conversation going. Now, as you already know, tonight's conversation is all about conflict. But what if conflict isn't problematic, but a pathway to deeper connection? Just imagine two children arguing over a toy. Instead of fistfights or tears, they negotiate, appeal to fairness, and share. Their innocence holds a secret we've forgotten as adults. Conflict is not the enemy, it's the invitation to grow. Conflict costs about 359 billion annually in workplace productivity alone. Yet studies show 72% of disputes escalate, not because of the issue, but because we're blinded by biases, seeing others as obstacles, not allies. Let's rewind. Picture that same childlike instinct now buried beneath years of ego, fear, and stories we tell ourselves. Paul Claudel once said, "We must not seek happiness in peace, but in conflict." What if he was right? What if conflict, handled with courage and curiosity, is the forge where trust, innovation, and resilience are born? The zebra effect teaches us that animals reset stress in minutes. Humans, we ruminate for days, cortisol flooding our brains, shrinking our empathy. But here's the twist. Neuroscience reveals our brains are wired for cooperation. Mirror neurons fire when we witness pain or joy in others. Conflict is the mirror asking us to see beyond ourselves. Four invisible traps poison our interactions: the superiority bias, the entitlement trap, the performative mask, and inferiority spirals. These biases turn people into objects, distorting reality. Yet when we shift from a combative mindset, which says that you're the problem, to a cooperative mindset where we say, what's our problem? Something radical happens. We unlock what MIT calls positive sum thinking, where conflicts birth solutions that leave everyone better off. Tonight, we're not just solving disputes, we're excavating the hidden gold in chaos. How do CEOs turn teams' clashes into innovation? How do partners dismantle years of resentment with one courageous question? And why does nature itself, predators and prey, balancing ecosystems, teach us that harmony thrives through tension, not avoidance? Welcome to the art of conflict resolution. Let's begin. Now, gentlemen, I like, for these conversations, I like to start off with a statistic, and that statistic tends to get us kind of set for the conversation that we're going to have. According to a 2023 study by the American Psychological Association, unresolved conflicts cost U.S. businesses $359 billion annually in lost productivity. In personal relationships, 65% of people report that recurring arguments erode trust over time. And I kind of want that just to roll, just keep scrolling as we get into the first question. because I want you guys to kind of think into this and kind of share with us. Like, have you ever walked away from conflict with a disorienting silence where the fight ends, but the hurt digs deeper, leaving you trapped in the same emotional loop you thought you'd escape?
Yes. In personal relationships, relationships with family members, relationships on the job. So I would say yes. I think definitely been there. I think one of the things that sucks about it is you walk away feeling like the issue hasn't been resolved, and as men, a lot of times, I'm speaking just as a man because I'm a man, as a man thinketh. So I try to think logically about things. You know what I'm saying? So I tend to think a little bit deeper about things and not just things on a surface level. So, and I also want to be able to solve problems if I'm coming to you or if we're having a conversation about something. So, if Gaddy comes to me and we're having a conversation and we're on the job and he doesn't like something that I did on the job and he confronts me about it and then we have conversation about it and then he just like says, well, whatever, and then just walks away. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm like, well, what's going on, brother? Like, hey, you came to me, you wanted to have a conversation about something that you was not okay with, but then you put up the wall and then walked away. So now, because we don't have conversation and we're not having words, that can create or cause some tension. So now when we're at the break room, now we're at the watering hole or we're on the smoke break, he looking at me, I'm looking at him because we haven't resolved something. So either one of us, could be trapped in some emotional loop because we haven't come to a solution. The conversation stopped. So wherever we was at, if we had to get to from 1 to 10, we didn't make it to 10. Whether we made it to 6, whether we made it to 8 or made it to 9, we didn't get to the end of the conversation. And I think that those things can again, I think they can cause tension in relationships. So that's where I'll put a pin at right now.
I like that scenario you just used. But I'm gonna take since you took the business side, I'm gonna take the flip side. Because what I heard when I've read this question was, have you ever gotten into an argument with your lady, whether it's your current lady or your ex lady? No, I'm joking. A little bit, but yes. The answer is yes, and 9 times out of 10, it's been an argument that I've had with a significant other. It was like, hey, this is the issue. Kind of same scenario ish, like, hey, this is the issue. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I think is happening. This is what I see is happening. Let's discuss it. And whenever we leave or I leave disoriented and in the same emotional loop, it's simply because it was either gaslit or spun back to where it's like, well, you just need to do this, or you could stop doing this. But I don't see it that way. Well, this is what the issue is. Well, I don't think I did that. Right. And so those type of responses tells me that you have no desire to take accountability, not even just in this conversation, but in a relationship going forward, which makes it harder for me to come forward as things bothers me. And I think a lot of time for a lot of men, we don't like to go forward into conversations we feel will be fruitless and would not bear any solution. So sometimes we stay silent. So you think he's stoic, or you think he's just sometimes it could be he just doesn't want to go through the battle or the rigmarole of going back and forth with no resolve.
Yeah, I like the fact that you end with no resolve. Uncle was about to say something. Go ahead, bro.
When you said that men don't want to go into conversations sometimes because they paraphrasing, they think that there may not be a resolution. Why do you think that is?
Well, I can speak for Twami. Anytime that I've ever gotten to that point with someone that I'm involved in a relationship with, whether it's business, like you even use on the job, I see every day, right? We have a co-worker relationship, or even supervisor employee. No matter which way it goes, there's a relationship. It's when we've had a conversation and you've shown that you had no interest in how whatever the issue is affects me, you're more concerned with defending your position, which is you didn't do it or you don't see it that way. So I have to just leave it, let it go. And that's a frustrating feeling. And I don't like to get frustrated because frustration to me doesn't exist.
So you basing it off of previous behaviors and not just assumptions saying she or this person can't handle the conversation. It's more than likely based off of behavior that person or that you guys have experienced in the past when it comes to conflict resolution.
Repeated. I'm gonna say that
repeatedly. Okay.
Yeah, I do like that. And to your point, history is like one of the best predictors of behavior. So when we seen repeated behaviors coming from a particular person, I think we can conclude that if I have this conversation, 9 times out of 10, there's a high probability that this person may respond the way that they've always responded. But there is that one time, right, to where they may show that, hey, I'm progressing. So I think that's one of the things that we have to grow beyond. But I'm with you guys. I'm with you. I've done it as well. I've even heard the notion of, we can agree to disagree, which is a fallacy within itself. But agree to disagree is still a disagreement. So we didn't agree on that. We just didn't agree. It's interesting because you could be talking about a thing, and I like Miss Charlotte Jordan said that she was right, right? She could have been right. Like everything that she was talking about could have been 100% right. But the other person, they're holding to the fact that, I don't know, maybe they're disappointed that you were right, or disappointed that I was right, or Garfield or Tawami was right. And because you brought it to their attention, now they got to stand their ground. And the notion of standing your ground is more problematic than what we realize. And it's kind of like a notion that was injected in our head, and therefore we believe is right to stand your ground. That's a whole nother conversation that I'm not going to get into tonight. But just like everybody else, I've been in that. I've been in the conversations to where it just seemed frustrating because the conversation go on and on and on and on and on. It's like, man, this was an easy conversation. But at the end of the day, it just seemed more problematic. And that's kind of like what we're talking about when conflict exists, to where at the end of the day, we're not seeking, like Ms. Jordan say, seeking what is right. It's more about who is right. And I think that's a great segue to kind of get us into the conversation that we're going to have, because I want to start off with 2 core pathologies in conflict resolution. The first one is escalating cognitive biases and emotional reactivity. And the problem with that is that conflict participants default to neurological hijacking, where self serving fairness interpretation and defensiveness override collaborative reasoning. This creates truth echo chambers where parties prioritize validating their emotional narratives over resolving core issues. And here's the shocking truth behind it: 72% of workplace disputes escalate due to confirmation bias in interpreting facts. And when we say confirmation bias, we're saying, in essence, that a person will go and find the facts to support what they're thinking. And unfortunately, they're not open to reasoning or anything of that nature. And then when it comes down to personal relationships, and I like to talk about this as well, and I'm glad that Gaddy brought this up, our defensive postures tend to reduce our prefrontal cortex activity by 37%, which ultimately impairs problem solving. So even in the midst of emotional hijacking, we cannot see clearly to solve the problem that is sitting before us. So the first question under this right here, and the only question really, is when someone amygdala hijacks a disagreement, does their brain confuse confirmation bias with clarity, grasping facts that fuel anger while dismissing exit from the conflict spiral?
I have to say, I say yeah. I say yes. Because you say when someone, right? When someone's yeah, you could say the word, you know. I need to get one of them buttons that have like coach's vocabulary. So when there's a word that I know I'm not going to pronounce properly, I can just press the button and it just says it. Well, so is it
Amy G. Dollar?
Amy G. Dollar.
Hey, I know a chick named Amy G. Dollar. Let me stop. But when it hijacks a disagreement, does the brain confuse confirmation bias with clarity? I think is definitely a possibility, especially after understanding where it's going, right? Because sometimes when you get emotionally caught up in the conversation itself, or in because of the not the context, but maybe just either I would say either the context or maybe just whatever the conversation is about, and you can think that, oh, I'm see clearly now, you're coming after me, or now you're belittling me, or now you're trying to say I'm not smart or not. Because a lot of people think, did you just say I wasn't smart? That's not what I said. What I, you know, but I think sometimes it happens because when we go back to the whole who's right thing, if I believe I'm right, anything you say outside of just stating your opinion, I'm going to interpret it as a personal attack. And now the conversation changes. And I think sometimes that's what creates the high intensities of conversations, because I feel personally attacked when you're just really just stating a fact or even an opinion, but the way I took it, because my emotions is caught up in what the conversation is about. This is why I don't talk about Trump at work, because some jokers get mad, boy. Or especially them black folks over 50. Well, I'm sorry, but they getting their Amy G. Dollar, and it's all love.
I get where you were going. I understand it. The Amy G. Dollar, right? The amygdala. When I see this word, I'm looking at I look at someone kind of being in survival mode. That's the way I look at it. When someone's amygdala hijacks a disagreement, they're in survival mode. So what happens is when you are at work and you don't talk about whatever you just said you don't talk about, right? And someone has a difference of opinion, right? What they do is they say, hey, look, well, I like this, I like the blue, right? So the blue said that this, like Coach said, they're going to go and get information to support their view. And I think what happens a lot of times, people have decided that they have going to partner with a certain team or certain whatever. So regardless of what comes out, I've already said that I'm this. So no matter what, Gaddy, son of Timothy, is a Giants fan. So no matter what somebody tell him about how trash they're going to be this year, he don't care. He don't worry about that. Now, and that's a little different because that's all in fun. You know what I mean? But it can be extreme because people do that. You know, you can go to the whole Jordan and LeBron, you know, look at the GOAT. There's people who they have a disagreement. They will go and get facts to support their argument. One will say, well, you know, Jordan got 6 rings. And then someone else say, well, you know, LeBron then went to the finals more times. And then there's this grabbing of information to confirm their viewpoint or their perspective. You know what I mean? And then I think, once you start getting angry and upset because maybe someone's not seeing it your way or whatever like that, I think that's the part where we start getting in survival mode. So what happens in survival mode? A lot of times emotions and other things and stuff starts coming out. People start getting angry and all of these different things like that. So that's kind of my thoughts about it. So my answer in the short would be yes, absolutely, 100%.
I love what you did. I like that because you're like you're in there. Because like you're spot on. It's like, especially when we start talking confirmation bias, what you'll find is that people will hear the aspect of your words that they want to hear that fits their narrative. And it's almost like they'll blot out everyone else, everything else that doesn't support what they're saying. And then they'll try to find an angle about what you're saying and make it work for them. Right. And you see it all the time. Like Eli Manning is not the best quarterback that ever played, NFL football. But Giants fan, on the other hand, will actually say that he is. And it doesn't matter what you say, they're going to go find the statistical data, and it might be for just one game. One game they'll talk about. Like he did not have a whole career, right? So it's like those things. And I'm joking when I say that because that's, this Gaddick, and we had that conversation a while back. But even in the midst of conflict, that's what you'll find. You'll find that it's very difficult to have an honest conversation because the person that you're talking about, or you, if you have confirmation bias in the midst of that conversation, you'll only pick out the thing that you want to respond to. You will even listen to, like, the person said an entire sentence, but one word, you'll hold your hat on one word and miss the entire meaning of the sentence because that one word is what you want to focus on. And that causes a concern and a problem. Let's kind of bring up, I'm sorry, you guys had something else you want to add? Gad, I know you leaned in. Unless you're talking about Eli Manning, I want to hear it.
Nah, I was just saying you tried to attack my amygdala just now,
Hey man, Andre Iguodala. Yeah, let's bring up some of these comments. Clarity constitutes stating the facts and removing the emotions. And I wouldn't say removing, but definitely regulating, right? Regulating is the key. I think it's almost in some cases it's difficult to remove them, but regulating them so that they don't like hijack the conversation is important. Kenrick says, good to see you, brother. We find what we're looking for. I try to ask myself why seeing things a certain way is so important to me. Reminds me of the 5 whys. I love that. Let's see. Anybody else? Okay. We're going to keep it pushing. Great conversation so far. Appreciate you, gentlemen. That takes us to...
There's one that just popped up.
Really? Hold on. I missed it.
I just see it on the screen. That's why.
Can you bring that up, please?
I can't see it good.
All right, gentlemen, what does having an honest conversation, what does it mean and what does it look like?
In the simple sense, I'll keep it short and sweet. An honest conversation is two people coming together, having honest about whatever it is topic that they're talking about, and that they are both looking to get to a solution, or that is based off of whatever principles at the work, based off of whatever it is you guys' plan at you guys' house or whatever like that. I just think it's pretty much two people getting together with a common goal in mind. There you go, common goal.
I'm gonna use a term that we don't like, but I'm gonna use it differently, and I'm seeing it in your faces when I say it. But I would say properly listen to respond. Right? Because we always talk about not listening to respond, right? When I start a conversation, I'm honestly giving my opinion. I could be 100% wrong. I could be going in the wrong direction on the wrong side of the road. But to me, I'm articulating what's in my what I'm thinking, or what I'm seeing, or what I'm feeling, right? Now, I think the honesty goes out the window is when you're not listening to responding, you're just responding to defend, right? And so and the reason why I use that term, because if you're actually listening to properly respond, then you're actually listening to what I'm saying. You're understanding what I'm trying to articulate, and you're responding to that, not responding to how you feel about it. Because I think once it becomes, well, I don't feel like you, or I don't feel like you just took the honesty out of the conversation, because we're no longer focusing on what the issue is at hand. We're focusing on how you want to feel coming out of this conversation, which is as the champion sometimes.
Yeah, I like that. I would respond. It's kind of goes. It's going to sound like a combination of both things, really. There has to be a certain set of values that govern our conversation. If we don't necessarily have that thing that governs the conversation that we have, then at the end of the day, I don't have anything to regulate my thought processes off of in the midst of this conversation. So now, when we're having conversation, I can't just go way off in left field about how I feel because I'm making the entire conversation about me. It has to be those values that govern it. So even if I feel a particular type of way, if, and I think somebody put in the chat, facts look different when you start talking to different people, because what's factual to you may not necessarily be factual to me. So we can't just make it about the facts. It has to be about the principle that governs the relationship. And if the principle governs the relationship equally on both behalf, now the facts actually matters as it pertains to the relationship. So if I'm being honest in the midst of conversation, I am now being honest about the facts as I observe them, and then I'm laying it on the table for you to respond to. I'm not judging you, I'm not ridiculing you, I'm not doing any of those things. I'm laying this conversation out there and I'm leaving it for you to respond to. But here's the catch: you got to respond to the conversation, like Gaddy said, because if you're not responding to the conversation, now you're just responding to your strong suit, because that's your stronghold, that's your where you dug in at. And you don't want to necessarily have an honest conversation. You want to have a conversation to where you feel in control, when you feel empowered, so forth and so on. So that's why I say it that way. If we don't have those values and those principles that govern the relationship, then we can have free fall conversation. Going back to the work setting, those core values are the things that govern our relationship within the workplace. Therefore, now, in the midst of our conversation about what's happening for the team, we need to respond accordingly. And when you look at conflict resolution within a team setting, forming, storming, in the storming stage, most managers will let you hash it out as long as it does not get out of control. But once it get out of control, they'll come in, they will regulate and point you back to the reason why we came together as a team, for the sake of the company. And to me, that's what honest conversation is all about. Any other thoughts before we press forward?
Nope, I like that. I like it.
Okay, you guys, was there another question that I missed?
Yeah, it just popped up.
What if the conversation is one-sided from the beginning, and when you get through, you feel like you're not getting through at all?
The F word.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I said previously. Do I feel like it's one-sided, right? And if I feel like it's one-sided because I'm not feeling like I'm heard, well, sometimes I think we will not feel like we're heard because the other person isn't responding the way I want them to respond. And that could be problematic. If I have a statement and or a question, I have to leave it to that person to respond again to what I actually said. Now, if they're not responding to what I said, that is where the problem is. That's problematic. But if they're responding to what I said, I have to relinquish the control and not want them to respond the way that I want them to respond. It's like we all know, because we all got this education thing going on. So we know how to answer questions. What did you go to the store? That's a yes or no question, right? But a lot of times, well, see, what had happened was I was going to the store and then I ended up going to Garfield house, and Shell had Garfield doing something, so I decided to help Garfield. Like, that's not answering my question. Did you go to the store? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, great. What'd you get? Because it's an easy conversation if you listen to the question. And I think a lot of times people don't actually listen to the question. Garfield, you had something you was about to add.
You talking about we be being nice. I think y'all being nice now. everything ain't a conversation. Some stuff is just need to be said. Some stuff we don't need to go back and forth over. Like, look, if I use my dirty drawers, right? If I ain't cleaning up my drawers off the floor, she'll come up and be like, babe, look, you ain't cleaning up your drawers. Why do we need to have a conversation? You know what I mean? It ain't nothing for me to go back and be like, I don't need to have an opinion. Oh, well, after I got back from working out, I had to rush to get to work. So I had to jump in. Bruh, it don't take 2 seconds to throw them in the whatchamacallit. We don't need to have a conversation about everything. I understand sometimes feeling heard. I get that. But sometimes we don't need to have a conversation about everything. Sometimes it's just going to be direct. Sometimes we just going to bring up something and we just need to get it fixed. You know what I'm saying? We just need to, hey, look, this is how it is. Here's the solution. Let's just roll with it and move on. We don't need to spend too much time on this. We need to get back to loving each other. So that's my 2 cents.
I like that. I was going to go somewhere similar, but because the way she worded the question, she said from the beginning. I think at this point, and this is nothing that at this point, feelings got involved automatically. We already started putting up the defenses because every conversation that is about some type of conflict, the person bringing the conflict to the table will always be the long-winded one because they are trying to be heard. And 9 times out of 10, this is not the first time. So they're bringing it and they're trying to get their point across before you respond. So sometimes it seems as if it's one-sided from the beginning, but yeah, it is one-sided in the beginning because I'm the one bringing the issue to the table. So I'm laying it out so you can respond to what I'm saying. If I hurry up quick, if I just say, hey, I got a problem with this and shut up. Well, what's your problem? you wanted me to throw it away? You want me to get rid of it? You want me to change it? You want me to get another color? You want me like what's the problem? What problem you having? So that long-windedness is always going to come from the person. I don't even know if that's a word, but it's always going to come from the person that's bringing the issue to the table. That's the way I see it.
I love it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all again for the questions. Keep the questions coming. Y'all know how we do. We'll take up a whole show to answer questions. Also, if you have not done so yet, hit that chat, hit that like button, and make sure that you're sharing it on your social media platforms. Can't get it out. So that we can continue to get massive exposure. Good to see you, Joan Elmore, and everybody else who's joined us. I think Chosen One joined us as well. Good to see you. Okay. That takes us to the next talking point, which is competitive scripts over collaborative story building. The problem here is that parties frame conflicts as zero-sum narrative wars, rather than opportunities to co-author third stories that integrate perspectives. This competitive mindset manifests in areas such as withholding empathy to win the moral high ground, or prioritizing archival dominance, or what we tend to call my truth over shared meaning. And some examples that goes along with that is relationships using my truth debates show 42% higher cortisol spikes. And if you understand what cortisol is, it is the chemical that is responsible for fight or flight. So 42% higher cortisol spikes than those negotiating shared narratives. Also, 68% of unresolved conflicts stem from partners treating respect as a finite resource to ration. So, gentlemen, real quick, when truth wars prioritize archival dominance, my truth versus theirs, who becomes the collateral damage of unmourned perspectives?
One of the things I've learned on this show, and I say it on a regular basis, even in my personal life outside of Coach's Corner and Hearts of Men, is the most important person in a relationship is the relationship. So when you have this right here, this stuff going on, I'm going with Gaddy when I'm going with the relationship part now. When you have this in a relationship, the relationships are the one who lose. You know what I mean? Shell talking about, oh, well, this is it. You said this one time, and this is your truth and my truth, and I'm going back and forth about whose truth is the truth. All the while, we are missing out on the truth when it comes to us. You know, and what is our truth when it comes to our relationship, to our marriage? What did our vow say? What are the doctoring principles that govern our truth? At the end of the day, if we can't agree on what our truth is, then we need to go back to wherever the truth is. And then we need to look at the truth and then figure out what the truth says about our truth. And then at the end of the day, we will get the truth. So at the end of the day, what becomes collateral damage from the unmoral perspectives is the relationship at the end of the day.
My answer is simple: the truth.
Truth.
At the end of the day, if it's my truth versus your truth, and we're using the whole concept of I'm right, if that's how I'm coming to this conversation, the truth will always get lost. When two people come already knowing that their preconceived notion of the topic is the correct. So I like to watch people debate certain things. Like I don't have a lot of things to just get on YouTube and watch. Sometimes I like to watch like debates about certain topics, stuff that I don't really care about, right? But there's one guy, he's an apologist, and he debates about the scriptures. I can never his debates, I can listen to 5 seconds of them and then I got to click off, because he talks to everyone like, I'm your teacher, I'm the elder, so you have to just shut up and just bow to what I say. Like, this is not a debate. This is you just thinking everyone should convert because you spoke, and nothing else is going to be able to come forth and be put on the table, because you've already said your truth is the dominance. So who lost? The truth.
I like it. I like it. I agree. I definitely agree with what you said, Garfield. The relationship suffers, right? Because at the end of the day, when we look at this question, I think for the most part, we have to get down to the point of recognizing, like you said, who is the most important person in this relationship. Going back to what I said previously, what values do we hold? What joint values do we hold sacred when it comes down to this relationship? What are the principles under those values that drive our interaction? And so when we get to that space to where it's all about my truth, and that's the posture that we have in the midst of this conversation, because at the end of the day, I don't want you to point out, and I have to say this, I don't want you to point out where my lies exist in my truth, or where the assumptions that I have that governs my truth, where I don't want you to challenge them. Then what you're telling me by saying initially my truth is that this is where I'm at, this is my ground, accept that, and then we can move forward in relation to it. But this is the interaction, right? And again, it depends on the relationship itself. If it's a friendship, then sure, you can have your truth. At the end of the day, I get it. That's what you want to do. Okay, that's fine. But if it's a marriage, now we're talking about something more significant, because we have truth. You know what I'm saying? Our truth. We're supposed to be one. This is our truth. Now, what is this thing? And you know how we do, man. We kind of pick and choose our battles. We ain't gonna make a big deal out of everything. Some things it's like I'm not really concerned about that. But then the things that we do talk about, we talk about them because they're significant. So that's just kind of like where I'm at with that. I love what you guys said, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. We do have a question in the chat that I want you guys to take a look at real quick. What about trying to have a conversation with someone who has a dismissive or avoidant personality where things can't be adequately processed?
I think this goes back to what you just said about the nature of the relationship. Is this a business relationship? Is this a personal relationship? Is this an acquaintance? If this is an acquaintance, I mean, I ain't, we don't need to have no more conversations. Like, it's good. If I see you at the football game, my kids play football together, I'll speak and wave, but we ain't having conversations about nothing, especially religion or politics. You know what I mean? Now, if it's somebody we at work, we may have to get along, maybe um maybe I may push a little bit, maybe have somebody intervene. I ain't really trying to go to the boss, but depend on what we got going on, we may have to. But if it's a relationship and first of all, how do we get to the point to whereas this is how this person is now? Or what went wrong in a relationship to where this person is dismissive or have an avoidant personality? And if y'all in a relationship and y'all been together for a long time and you haven't seen these behaviors, there wasn't a question. So I think that if it's somebody that's close to you in a relationship, it's worth it, then this may be an opportunity to have someone else come in with a different perspective who may be trained to help deal with maybe to deal with this type of relationship if this is what's going on in the relationship.
Whew. I notice about people who are like this, they're typically only dismissive or avoidant when it's things that they are not the authority on or that they don't want to talk about or that doesn't bother them. Because once it's something that they want to discuss, all of a sudden it's not dismissive and avoidant. They have a lot to say, so that's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning. Like that type of behavior caused me not to. I'm not gonna bring, like, if it's a work thing, like just said, a boss or supervisor, whoever, this is the issue I'm having. Because I know I can't come to you. So I'm gonna go and I'm saying, hey, I need some resolve. And this is what the issue is, bye. And why is it an issue? Because especially if I'm talking to a supervisor, I'm gonna let them know this is affecting my job when they do this, and this. Right? Now the question, the answer could definitely be, well, I told them to do it, right? And I'm like, all right, well, then you're the right person to talk to because it's affecting how I do my job for A, B, and C reasons. But outside of work, it's going to put me in a mindset to not have the conversation with you, because once I get frustrated, the conversation becomes anger driven more than it's becoming fact driven. I hope that makes sense.
Nope, it makes sense. And as I look at this question, there's a couple of things I excuse me. There's a couple of things that I automatically see. Trying to have a conversation. The first thing I want to know is that what is the thing that drives me to try to have a conversation with that person? Is it because we have a working relationship? Is it because we have a friendship now? Or the other side is that, are we married? So I have to understand the reason behind trying to have a conversation with this person. The next part, when I look at, we talk about dismissive or avoidant personality, and those are more so of relationship styles, like how they see relationships and how they interact in relationship. But that does not mean that they can't process, right? That's the part I want to go to. Sure, they may have been shown, may have been signs to where they don't necessarily process it like other people, right? But it's not that they can't process. So what I would say is that you may have to exercise a little bit more patience when dealing with that person, right? You may have to exercise a little bit more compassion in trying to have that conversation. And I know a lot of us don't want to do that. I'm gonna be honest with you. So now that takes me to my next point. I need to look at myself first, because the next thing that I say, if it's not a working relationship, then why am I in relationship with this person, trying to have conversation with this person? And I'm not making this person out to be the bad guy, right? I'm saying, like, everything that we must consider always starts here. I have to start here first, because if I don't start here first, I'm missing a lot of information, or I'm misinterpreting a lot of the information that I'm receiving. Because a lot of times we want to point outwardly, when reality we need to point inwardly first, then work our way out. So that's the thing I want to start off with. So again, why am I trying to have the conversation with this person? Just because they have a dismissive or avoidant attachment style does not mean that they can't process. And then at the end of the day, why am I in relationship with this person if I know that that's their, what is my personality? What is my attachment style? Because in most cases, we got to look at who attracts who. So I would go there. I think that's a great question. I thank you for asking that. So yeah, great response. Great response, gentlemen. Where are we? I almost lost our space. Fear of vulnerability. Thank you. So, so we're going to kind of talk about different mindsets, right? That kind of, exist in the space of conflict. The first one is, as we just seen, fear of vulnerability. And that mindset is where we equate vulnerability with defeat. And with that being said, the paradox of psychological armor states that attempts to protect oneself through emotional defenses, such as stoicism, denial, or suppressing vulnerability, reinforce isolation and stagnation. And by clinging to psychological armor, hiding wounds, avoiding present moment awarenesses, or masking authenticity, individuals paradoxically deepen their emotional entrenchment rather than achieving safety. What does that really mean? We mistake emotional armor for strength, not realizing every shielded wound becomes a landmine in relationship. This is pretty much known as like a phantom intimacy, where safety simulations tend to suffocate connections. So, gentlemen, I do have a work related or business question for you, if you will. How might cultural narratives equating stoicisms with strength unintentionally undermine leadership potential by disregarding the necessity of emotional release for decision making? Now, I ask it again to give you guys time to process. How might cultural narratives equating stoicisms with strength unintentionally undermine leadership potential by disregarding the necessity of emotional release for decision making?
Got that one, Gaddy?
I knew, that's why I unmuted. I knew it was coming. I understand the question. It's just how to word my response. How my cultural narratives are equating stoicism with strength unintentionally undermine leadership potential by disregarding necessity. So I noticed that a lot of people do believe that your ability to not have emotion or show emotion or whatever the case may be makes you a great leader. And so I have two different supervisors on my job that are above me, right? Well, it's three people that outrank me in my job, but two of them that I answer to, right? One of them, I hope, doesn't have my social media and watches this, but he takes the stoicism side, right? But what that means is when conflict happens on a job, his employees are always wrong, right? So I saw a soldier almost climb over the counter like he was going to attack my employee. And when I redirected him and I walked off, I said, "Son, let's talk. What's the issue?" "I don't have the issue. He has it." I said, "Son, you're yelling. I need you to let's calm back down." "I'm not yelling, sir. Sorry, let's step over." And he steps in, grabs me, and says, "You can't yell. You can't argue back and forth with him." I'm not arguing. It's just that's his nature of problem solving. It's you're wrong. He's correct. Now get over it. And it's like, well, I'm not going to be a punching bag for every soldier that has an attitude or wants things or doesn't want to abide by the rule. We need to have a policy in place on how to handle this type of conflict, and it can't just be I should have let the soldier jump over the counter and get to my employee. Then I would have been a bad supervisor, But then I have another supervisor that intermediates between me and him now. She's more of the, that doesn't make sense. Why was that soldier climb? All right, next time, Mr. Gaddy, you contact the MPs and we'll figure the story out later, because that's he was attempting to attack an employee. That's not how we handle business. So her ability to use emotion to make a proper decision says, hey, I have to protect the people that's working here. And because we think that the stoicism, or some people think that the stoicism is the better leadership quality, you tend to create hostile environments. If I don't feel protected, if I feel like I'm just open and vulnerable to whatever comes in this building and I will be in the wrong automatically, now I feel like I work in a hostile environment, even when things are not hostile, because I know that I have no conflict resolution plan for situations. So I know I rambled, but those are the two sides of that coin, the way I see it. Right. And so I don't know. I feel sometimes you can create an environment for those who work for that person that becomes hostile when emotion is suppressed.
How might cultural narratives equating stoicism with strength unintentionally undermine leadership potential by disregarding the necessity of emotional release for decision making? I think that kind of like what Gaddy said, when you suppress emotions and feelings, I'm gonna add feelings in there too. When you suppress these things, like they're still there, they're not gone anywhere. You just suppressed them, but they haven't gone away. When I look at this, I look at this as not necessarily like a ticking time bomb, but it's like, like you have a leaders like that. Like sometimes it's not obvious until it's too late, or till it's like a lot of damage has already been done. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of the sucky thing about it. But like what Gaddy was saying, I can definitely rock with that. I just lost my train of thought. So come back to me.
No, you good. I think it's when we look at this, one of the things that a lot of us don't grasp is that empathy is probably one of the most important leadership traits that we need to have. And we got to make sure we don't confuse empathy and sympathy, because a lot of times we do it. I just need you to understand as a leader, right? So some of the things that you go through as a subordinate, or even as a child, when it comes down to parenting, you got to keep in mind at one point in time you were them, right? So somebody had to understand what you were going through and try to exercise some empathy towards you, and not necessarily drop the hammer on you every time you got out of line. So when we look at trying to exist in a space where we rid ourselves of all emotions, that's not a good leadership trait to have. It works in certain situations, don't get me wrong, right? But then when we start looking at the people business, and make no mistake about it, leadership is people business. When we start looking at the people business, you got to have empathy when it comes down to dealing with people. I say it all the time, and I got it from John Maxwell. John teaches all the time. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So as a leader, as a leader, when your subordinates understand that you care about them and things of that nature, they'll follow you to the ends of the earth without question. But when you're just a number, just somebody who produce results, it's almost like they're going to start looking for a job almost instantaneously, because you're showing yourself as a leader, like Gaddy was just displaying, as a leader who does not have empathy whatsoever. You don't care about me, you just care about the results. And at the end of the day, I can go someplace else and I'll probably accept lesser pay if somebody actually respects the person that I am.
And yes, and that's the I'm gonna throw this word out there. That's the subjective piece that's in there some. And I know good leadership is good leadership. I think most people can recognize good leadership. I think sometimes, this kind of goes back to the suppression of the feelings. Like when you suppress these feelings, they don't go away. You still have to deal with them at some point. And sometimes, like Gaddy said, they come out and you lash out at your soldiers or your subordinates and different things like that. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know, man. I don't know, for some reason I'm stuck on the suppression of the feelings piece, and just how that can affect everybody else. You know, I've worked for people, and I would just be like, man, this dude just need a beer. I would just say it like that. The dude just needs something. You know what I mean? And you just like, bro, why a dude just so wound up so tight all the time? It's just like, bro, like, why you on 100 all the time? And I get it. Just like you said, I think that there is a time and place for that. I think sometimes you need to be there. When we're charging the hill, I need that. You know what I'm saying? But when I'm at home and I'm having a conversation, maybe not so much. When I'm trying to get things done on the job, maybe I need that some, depending on what we're doing, what the mission is, but maybe I don't need to be like that all the time. But I think also that there's something that sometimes takes time to learn. You know what I'm saying? I can definitely say that who I was as a leader early on to the person I was when I retired was two totally different non-commissioned officers.
No,
And
absolutely. Okay.
Different
I was gonna say, because to your point, right? I think you also need to. The difference is, like, I don't need the stoicism. I need someone who knows how to turn it on and off, because that's when we go on the battlefield, right? We've all been there. You go on the battlefield. I need you to be able to say, "Hey, the primary goal is to engage and overcome whatever we're engaging at the moment, right?" But when we come back into the wire, and not even when you go back into the wire, because as soldiers we do a good job with hiding it during the duration of the deployment. But when we get back across the waters, can can you be there? Because I think that's the problem. A lot of soldiers, we came back from across the water and we didn't have emotional support at the unit level.
Mm.
And so whatever happened at home, whatever conflict we faced at home, the tragedies that we saw happened because there was no way to re-regulate emotions. There was nowhere to go. And back when, at least during the Iraq time, I can only speak for OIF, OEF. During those times, a lot of us was told when we got to reverse SRP to shut up and don't cry. We ain't got time to be in here all day. Get in there and get out. And so no one ever identified we need to go sit down and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And so maybe having a leader who was able to lock in a little bit more emotionally, or with a little more empathy, maybe we could have. And I'm just speaking, you know.
Nope, I got you. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to keep pressing forward because at the end of the day, this is a great conversation. I greatly appreciate everybody's points of view. Shout out to Props. Good to see you. Provide triggers for evaluation is really putting some great information in the chat. Keep them coming because we got a lot more that we need to go through. And I want to make sure that we at least get a portion of the way through this. We probably won't finish, but that's okay. Next one is survival of past scars. And the mindset here is mistaken familiarity for safety. And that kind of brings to the table what we tend to call mimetic trauma loops, or what is otherwise known as epigenetics, which is a theoretical framework positing that trauma can propagate across generations through cultural transmissions and potentially epigenetic mechanisms where environment stressors alter gene expression without changing DNA. Your brain can't tell the difference between past abusers and a current partner who raised their voice. This neurological time travel turns lovers into unwitting ghosts of your unfinished battles. So, gentlemen, the next question that I have for you is, when we call a partner's reaction extreme, could their words be acting as a mirror reflecting our childhood wounds we've refused to heal from? I know it's a
I
yes or
guess.
no, but don't leave it there.
I guess off the rip, I would say yes. Now, as far as piecing it together, let me take a stab at it. I think there are some times where we can use the word extreme and it can be considered subjective. But I think sometimes it's like, come on, that is extreme behavior, you know? Now, we can look at, I don't know who saw the video of Shakari Richardson and Coleman, right? Some would say there was extreme behavior. I would say that there was extreme behavior. But in certain circles, in certain areas of the country, that's normal everyday behavior. That's everyday normal behavior in certain relationships. So but I think at the end of the day, the general public and most people would say that that is considered extreme behavior. So I say that to say that I think that when we're in relationships, I don't like when people start playing mind games, well, you saying that, this is extreme. Come on now. You already know that you've been extreme about this. So let's don't even go there. So when we call a partner's reaction extreme, could their words be acting as a mirror? I think in a sense, in some cases, yes, reflecting our childhood's wounds we refuse to heal. Um, so the refusal part right there is where I'm stuck at. Just because I think sometimes it's refusal, but why is it a refusal? Sometimes do we not get the information? Do we not know? Do we not know where to go? Do we not know that we even have an issue? Because a lot of times we have issues and we don't necessarily see them. A lot of time when we have conflict or we having conversations, a lot of times we're projecting or we're looking at the other person in the conflict. A lot of times, in many cases, we're not looking at us and saying, what is my part in the conflict, and what can I do to help make this situation better than what it is? So yeah, that right there.
I think you brought up the perfect scenario, right? If we talk about that young lady, right? Now, I don't know what part of the scenario you call an extreme, because you said some places is normal behavior, but she tried to get the man arrested, or but whatever, right? But like, to me, I had a whole nother way to go. But when you brought her up, I immediately started thinking about her whole story that we know of, right? I don't know her whole story, but let's say, if I put on if I borrow your counselor's hat for a second there, Unc, and I'm saying, and I sat down and I talked with this young lady. She's telling me about how she made it to the top early and then got in trouble because she started smoking and doing drugs. Her biological mother passed. Oh, your biological mother. So you were raised by a foster mother and your grandmother. Oh, now you have these, and I'm so tells me that there's more to this backstory that we don't know of. So now we fast forward. She's met with conflict, and everybody think, oh, this is just another woman trying to destroy a man's career and try to destroy. She's responding how because she's a world champ and she's on a public stage. It does not erase her past. It doesn't erase everything that she's gone through and experienced. So I shouldn't have looked at the chat, but when you think of that whole story, it's like, is she not reflecting just some? I'm automatically assuming now, knowing her story, something may have happened that is not talked about publicly, that may have never been dealt with, and so she's looking at their disagreement as an attack, and so every attack on her feels extreme. She's going to respond extreme. And then if you know the girl, everything she says has an extreme reaction to it. But that's I think that's personality for her. But
I love this. I love your responses, and I really love Prop's response as well, because I think every opportunity is an opportunity to examine myself. And I think when I miss the mark of examining myself, then I automatically can point out and find the wrong in someone else. But like I said before, if I start inwardly first and then work my way outwardly, that makes me examine some of the assumptions that I actually have in the space of relationship and personal interactions. In those times, people that you encounter can reveal some things about you through their behavior that you have not yet considered. That is always an opportunity. I have this saying to where I say the person that you believe that you are, life has to present some type of challenge to validate that thing in you. That is the evidence that you need to understand what you believe is authentically and truly what you believe, or is that just what you're saying that you believe? And going back to Prop's point, I like what he said. You don't have to bring it back up. But going back to Prop's point, I like what he said because, in essence, in a nutshell, that's what he's saying. Like he said, I had these same thoughts, but it just took me this time to get to the point of expressing it. I can relate to that because, like, a lot of the things that I think today, I kind of thought when I was in the army, I just did not know how to make them come out in a digestible format for somebody else. And so it took some years of kind of chewing on them and seeing how to, the environment respond to those things as I put it out. This side, it might have been aggressive. This side, it might have been extremely aggressive. This side, not so extreme, but still aggressive. This side, a little bit less aggressive, kind of getting towards mild. Now it's a little bit more mild, but make no mistake about it, the aggression can still be there if I allow it. I just have to find a way to get to the point to where I don't allow that thing to overtake a situation because it's laying dormant in the background. I got to put it on the shelf. And so I think that exists for everybody. Everybody has a person who they used to be, and that person is still there. You just now have gotten to the point in your life to where that person, you have no desire to be that person anymore. And it's not saying that that person is bad. It's just that that person had learned some things that they had to overcome in their young adolescent years. And that pretty much is kind of like what life looks like. And you will always have that encounter. So I greatly appreciate everybody's response. And I think you guys were spot on. Next is the illusion of control. Now, yes, next is the illusion of control. The mindset here is confusing influence with control. It's more so, instead of being collaborative, you're more coercive. And so in this aspect, a psychological framework where chronic attempts to exert control rewire neural pathways, causing individuals to perceive autonomy, spontaneity, or collaboration as existential threats akin to unimaginable L-shaped blocks in a game of Tetris. In other words, it's like demanding compliance to feel secure. It's almost like choking a plant for it to keep still. This botanical paradox reveals control kills the growth and it kills the growth that it claims to protect. And so, gentlemen, the question I want to ask you is that when we look at it, why do control-driven individuals mistake autonomy for chaos?
I'm still stuck on the choking the plant to
Yeah.
make it steel. I ain't never heard of that before. And I got a visual of that. I was like, man, choking a plant.
So, and I got quiet for a second thinking about it because, like, this may be me in a sense, right?
Well, I want to say this as well. I am okay if you say that the assumption that I have behind creating this question is wrong.
So, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I can see me a little bit in it, right? Because of a recent situation and conversation I've had with people. But so by control, and when I think of control driven, I'm thinking order driven, right? Not necessarily I personally control, but there is something that has to control my behavior or my actions, or else we live in anarchy, And so, and I take this and I take that mindset from a biblical concept, right? And so when I hear people talk about the concept of trying to live an autonomous life, for God. It's like, well, the two don't mix to me. There's something that places order over your behavior, over you. So when I and it ain't necessarily got to be me in control, but the way we do this show, somebody has to control it. It's like, and I'm not being funny, but when I log into StreamYard, I know I know who's the producer and director. You know, I know who lead I'm following, right? And I know who platform I'm on. When I walk inside of my job, I know who faces on the wall when you walk in the entrance. I know who's in charge. They drive the behavior or the philosophy, right? The behavior philosophy of the organization. And so for me to say, well, I'm my own person and I'm going to act my own way, I have my own autonomy when he's the one that has to validate my pay every week or every other week. To me, that's so when I look at it as chaos, I look at it as trying to live lawless. So that, but I see myself in it. So when you said that, so I started thinking about why do I do I see it like that? But this is that's my world view of behavior. There's somebody over me. And there's somebody over all of us that should have a say in how we conduct ourselves.
See if y'all can finish this sentence based off of check y'all movie knowledge. One band, one sound. There you go. Even though your mic was on mute, you knew what I'm talking about. One band, one sound. I cannot help but to think about the famous Dr. Lee when I'm thinking about this from Drumline, Dr. Lee. I look at Dr. Lee as a straight guy. He was set in his ways. He was really stuck in doing things the way he wanted to do it. It was his way. Even when the dean told him, hey, Dr. Lee, bro, you playing is, Flight of the Bumblebee. We tired of hearing this. We want to hear what they playing down the road. You know what I mean? We want to play some new upbeat music. But Dr. Lee, and I could be way off on this, but this is how I see it, this question. Dr. Lee, what's the word? Not control issues. Dr. Lee was in control of his program and he wanted his drum line and his band to be a certain way based off of how he wanted things. Go ahead, Coach.
Some people say that Dr. Lee was a perfectionist, but I don't think he was.
There you go. See? And as you go through the story, Nick Cannon came in there. That little snotty nose, wet behind the ear freshman that couldn't read music. He wanted autonomy. He wanted to do things his way. He wanted difference. He was, he kind of was a person who marched at the beat of his own drum, so to speak. Right. So for Dr. Lee, that was hard for him to give up some of that control because he was no longer in charge. I mean, he was in charge, but there was somebody else who kind of threw a monkey wrench into his plan. He came in there and he pretty much disrupted the entire band, the entire program. It eventually turned around because it's Hollywood. It eventually turned around for the better. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know, man. For me, I just kept thinking about, he was talking. I kept thinking about Dr. Lee in this question, and why do control-driven individual mistake autonomy for chaos? For him, it was chaos. But as you see, it turned out to be a really great thing for the entire program, and everybody benefited from it. So if you never seen Drumline, I apologize because you probably didn't get any of that. But it's based off of who I see in the chat here every week. I think for the most part, most people have already seen this movie. So
yeah. And so just to kind of encapsulate what you guys are saying from your perspective, Dr. Lee may have viewed autonomy as chaos, but it revealed that his style of teaching was antiquated, and that because Nick Cannon having not so much as the school knowledge when it comes down to reading music, but he had a whole bunch of talent. He kind of changed the way of doing things, and it kind of worked well for that particular movie. Not saying that that won't work well in real life, but are we saying collectively that autonomy can create chaos? Is that what I'm hearing everybody saying?
Autonomy can create chaos for those people.
Okay.
Those types of people that are control driven, it can be chaos. It is chaos.
Okay.
Just like he's saying, being transparent. I could say there were times in my life where I really wanted to have that control over certain things, but now it's more about being in control and not necessarily controlling. Um, if you can understand the difference in the two.
So, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, so I get that too, but I because I'm trying to see it outside of the contrast to control, because that's the way and that's just my viewpoint, right? But autonomy in the concept of learning or not learn of having my way of producing a product, right? So if we talk business wise, right? Yes, I know who's in charge, who controls our conduct and everything in the building, unless we want to be removed from employment. But at the same time, if you ask me to produce a report, right? And I'm just speaking as that guy on the computer that builds reports and stuff like that, right? You ask me for a report. I also don't want you to stand behind me and tell me exactly how I should click the buttons and what view I should use and I should zoom in. And no, I see it how I see it. I'm comfortable with my screen set up this way. You wait till I give you a product and you tell me if it gives you the information you need. Even if you want the layout differently, that's fine. I can change the layout. That's cool. But I can have autonomy in this aspect of I'm going to produce it the way I'm going to produce it, because I'm not I get that. I'm not a robot. So I'm not on an assembly line. Let me do my work. Let me get you what you asked for. So I can see it in that aspect.
Okay. So then I guess my next question is that can neurological time travel, and remember that is the concept of a person can't separate the effects of their past abuser from their current partner who raises their voice, right? Can neurological time travel result in the perception of control amid structure?
Yeah, yeah. That's like PTSD in a sense to me. That's how I'm looking at it. When something happens and I'm back where that happened. I moved on. I'm with my new wife and everything. But as soon as she does this, oh man, that's how my ex was. I'm immediately back to there. Yeah, man, that's a huge issue. Yeah, that can definitely happen, especially if you ain't work with it. And just a quick coaching plug right here. People in this area, if you're right here, those are counselors and therapists. If you already passed this and you're looking to go forward, that's coaching. We don't deal with a lot of what happened in the past, and we deal about where you are right now and moving forward. So quick shout out, quick plug for coaches out there.
You put the word can, so yes, we can.
Can yes, a can.
Good job, sir. Good job.
Hey, I learned from the best when it comes to that one right there. Now, but yeah, it can. Not to be mistaken with the fact that neurological time travel can also help protect you from the same thing, and I think it's important to state both so that there's no confusion between the two. All right,
Yeah.
so you can definitely protect yourself because you understand what that looks like. You've seen it before. You've experienced it, and and now you know the signs. But everything don't look like that. Sometimes that, I like the way you put that. I'm gonna use that in my everyday language now. That neurological time travel can sometimes cause you to see or perceive control based upon, or not even perceive control, but just have you looking for it, have you looking for the triggers, have you looking for the signs. And so when a thing is said, it could be very innocent. You automatically respond, oh no, you're not gonna control me. Nope, you're not gonna do this. And my bad. I'm gonna stop doing the neck because that's assuming that only women do it. My bad.
It was definitely the neck roll for me. I'm just saying.
but y'all got what I'm saying, though. You know,
We're gonna make a transition. Like, listen, shout out to everybody in the chats. I see what you guys are doing, man. You are on fire tonight, and we want to thank you. But we're gonna make a transition real quick because we're down to like our final minutes, and we greatly appreciate you guys being here. And we're gonna play a little game. Okay. So everybody's familiar with this game. Y'all seen it on TV. And we kind of did it one night on Coach's Corner, and I thought it would be great to do it this night. So listen, chat, you guys feel free to jump in. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to select because of time, but at a later point in time, what I'll do is I'll make sure we do this early enough so we can pit the panel members against the chat members. And you guys, as you already know, you will be at a great advantage. So because we did not make it all the way down, some of the things that we're going to talk about here, 5 categories: pathological conflicts, hidden frameworks, metaphoric mayhem, neuroscience nuggets, and conflict cure tactics. Now, if you select the question that we did not cover, I will allow you to select another question. So that being said, rock, paper, scissors from Uncle Junior and Gaddis so we can determine who go first.
And I'll let that young whippersnapper go.
Well, see, there it is.
If not, we're gonna have some conflict, and I don't want none.
it wasn't gonna be, I was gonna say age before beauty. So you know,
Age before beauty. All right,
Get
Gaddis,
you to it, youngster.
which one you gonna go with?
Let's go with neuroscience nuggets
for
200.
200. I don't know what just happened just now.
You just gave me my points. I'm great.
There we go. Chemical spiking during my truth battles is what? Remember, your answer has to come in the form of a question. Chat, if you know the answer, by all means, chime in. Chemical spiking during my truth battles is known as what?
What is amygdala? I cannot say the word. The Amy G. Dollar.
You know what? That was a great guess, but that is not the correct answer. Unc, you gonna steal this one?
My truth, that was near the end, something we did too. And that was like near one of the last ones. I don't know.
If I had the points up, the points will go to the chat. What is cortisol spike?
Cortisol.
Cortisol spike.
Cortisol spike.
Unc, you now have control of the board. Which one you want?
All right, yeah, let's go with metaphor mayhem for 300.
Metaphor mayhem for 300 is treating conflict resolution like fighting Tetris blocks.
What was that? What was it? I don't know. I don't remember. I didn't pay attention in class, Alex.
Gaddy, you got this one?
I know the chat got me. I should have picked 2 people from the chat to be on my team.
I mean, you know, in the future we can do that.
Yeah.
Anybody going once, going twice? No. What is control-seeking behavior? All right, who had control of the board just now? Unc?
It's on Gaddy now.
Okay, Gaddy, you got the floor.
Let's go with hidden framework for 100.
Hidden framework from 100 says, Gestalt therapy claims that emotional armor deepens isolation.
Stoicism.
No,
What is stoicism?
not stoicism. Unc, what you got?
What?
I'm not guessing. He don't want to risk his $100.
Well, it ain't no $100 if you don't answer either. So
I don't want to go in the hole.
Miss Charlotte Jordan said,
what is
Miss Jordan said, what is I have no idea. What is the episode of Jerry Springer? Well, y'all listen.
I mean,
Right.
he ain't wrong.
I'm about to say he ain't lying.
The answer to this one is, what is the paradox of psychological armor? All right, we got time for one more because we don't want to keep these fine people.
I would be like what Wish Collar said, Miss Crystal Everett. I'm sticking to the 100. So pathologies of conflict for 100.
Pathology of conflict for 100. 72% of workplace disputes escalate due to this self-serving bias. Man, I literally gave you the answer to the question.
Self-serving bias. What is self-serving bias?
No. It wasn't that easy. I'm just saying.
It wasn't that easy. Oh man.
We would there we go. Somebody got it. What is confirmation bias?
Confirmation bias.
A little fun we tend to have every now and again. We're gonna keep that rolling, I think, at a later point in time. So if you guys enjoyed that, go ahead and put it in the chat. Say keep it going. And that way we'll continue to bring Jeopardy back to this platform. But until then, that brings us to our bittersweet moment, as we tend to do every week, where we get into our final thoughts.
This was another great episode here on Hearts and Men. So tonight's topic, telling the hidden lessons of conflict. There were some hidden lessons in this podcast tonight. I will say this for my final thoughts. Conflict in most cases is something that is going to happen. So you might as well get good at it. And I don't mean good at it as far as being confrontational and different things like that. I meant good at it as far as learn skills to be better at conflict. You know, when conflict comes, how to handle it, who you should be in conflict with, who you should give your energy with when conflict comes to your doorstep. Because again, it is going to happen. Conflict is just something just in most cases part of life. Conflict can also, especially in relationships, be a good thing. Sometimes when something is brought up and there is conflict, this is not necessarily a cry for help, but this can be an opportunity. This can be a sign that there is an opportunity to grow closer together in the relationship. When you have conflict, I kind of look at it as, it's something small, but it can grow big, kind of like a cancer. So if you, just like anything else, if you allow that little thing to grow and grow and grow, next thing you know, your relationship is stage 4 and you're wondering why you're getting a divorce. So when you have conflict and you have those things, attack them early, get them looked at, have somebody look at them, get those small conflict things under control early. Just like health and everything else, this is the long term. It's a long game. So anything that you can do, training, podcasts, seminars, things that you can go to learn information about how to be better at conflict, then the better off you will be in all of your relationships, personal and business. And that's my final thought.
Whew, this was a really good conversation. I learned some things, and I think we just had a really good conversation. It was a fun time tonight. But my final thoughts on unraveling the hidden lessons of conflict. The first thing that stood out to me in this conversation, it was a small portion, but it jumped out to me, which was examine yourself first. I think sometimes conflicts become a loop, right? It becomes a cycle of recycled uh, viewpoints, because sometimes we're not examining ourselves. Is the point that is made valid? Is the problem me? Or if the problem's not me, but the problem's always not me, the problem is me because of who I'm continuing to attract. And when that was said, that struck something. So examine yourself first in all aspects of the relationship, of the conflict, of why are we here? Why do we end up back here every time? Right. Secondly, I believe all relational conflicts it has a resolve. It's just all parties involved has to be willing to meet the standard of resolution. Somebody may have to give, somebody may have, I know coach don't like the word compromise, I'm just going to stick with give. Somebody may have to give. Sometimes you lose in order to win, in order to get a resolve. So I don't think of it as losing and winning, but sometimes you gotta lose in a scenario in order to get the resolve. And if you feel like there's no resolve, sometimes the resolve is walking away. You don't always have to stay in a place where the conflict is continuing. Sometimes the answer might be walking away. I know that's not what everyone wants to hear, but there is a resolve for everything, even when that resolve is to walk away. That's all I have for this evening.
I thoroughly enjoyed everybody's points, everybody's perspective, the chat, everybody, when it came down to this conversation. If you paid attention to the thumbnail actually states on there, what does conflict create in your home? I think that we're all creative beings. I think some of us don't realize it. And the thing that we have to ask ourselves is, what is it that I am creating? If I'm in the span of relationship, I need to understand that two are better than one. So in the midst of any conflict that arises, we have an amazing opportunity to create something meaningful and lasting in the space of relationship. The other side, we can create chaos and we can create frustrations and we can create anger and we can create discord. But it's really up to you to choose what you create. Do I believe that conflict is a good thing? I do. I really do believe conflict can be a good thing if we behave ourselves accordingly in the midst of conflict. We have the ability, both of us, to grow together because of the conflict that we find ourselves in. We can learn something, not just about ourselves, but we can learn something about one another. Conflict, believe it or not, is a beautiful thing. It isn't the enemy. Stagnation is. We can stay in the same mental space that we were when we created the conflict if we so choose to, or we both can grow outside of that conflict so that we can be better, not just for ourselves, but be better for the people that we surround ourselves with as well. That's how we get to the point of being better for our community. If we have the ability to disagree and then grow from that disagreement, I think what we'll find is that everybody will be better off. And that is my final thought for this evening. Listen, as stated, I greatly appreciate everybody, not just the panel members, but you guys in the chat. You guys was lighting it up. Good to see Abe. Good to see Props. Good to see Provide Triggers for Evolution. We ask that you guys come back because we do this every week, every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be here. As always, it's good to see His Divine Appointment, Lisa Keys, Joan Elliott. I'm sorry, Joan Elmore. I said Joan Elliott. Joan Elmore. I'm sorry, I missed you. Good to have you here tonight. It's also good to see all of the people who are here all the time. Lisa Keys, Nodella Jordan, Crystal Everett, Nick D, His Divine Appointment, Charlotte Jordan. If I called your name already, I do apologize. But again, I greatly appreciate you guys. For your community members, tomorrow morning, 10:30, don't forget, we have our community meeting. Also next Saturday, not this Saturday coming, but next Saturday, don't forget, August 16th, starting at 8 o'clock, we have our conference. So make sure that you send that email as requested previously to the email address that came across your screen, because at the end of the day, I need to make sure that everybody gets the closed link for this particular conference. Again, it's free, so make sure that you send that email so we do not leave you out. Listen, As always, we greatly appreciate you guys. Have an awesome rest of your evening. Have a fantastic weekend if we don't see you again. And as always, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we'll see you guys again next week.